Hey, Hannah here with Delta Faucet. Today I'm going to be installing a stainless steel undermount sink. Undermount sinks are installed from under your counter. There's no exposed mounting deck. This creates a seamless transition from sink to countertop, and it makes for an easy to clean kitchen counter. This is the Rivet sink, but you can use this video to help you with any stainless steel undermount sink from Delta. If you have a different type, check out Delta's other sink installation videos. I bet we've got you covered. A couple of things to check. First, make sure your countertop cutout and cabinet base are large enough to accommodate the size of the sink you've purchased. Note that your cabinets should be 3 inches larger than your sink to ensure the mounting clips fit properly. Also check that the plumbing for your drain and garbage disposal will fit under the sink. And finally, it's a good idea to make sure you've got enough room to install your current faucet, or that you take the proper measurements before buying a new one. Okay, if that all checks out, grab the tools you'll need for this installation and let's get started. Some tools you may need are a drill and drill bit, silicone sealant, a screwdriver, a hammer, a tape measure, a pencil, painter's tape, some scissors, and if you're cutting your own countertop, a saw and an 1¼ inch hole saw, and of course, some safety glasses. The first step we're gonna do is prepare to cut our countertop. Now I worked with a countertop fabricator, so I provided them with this included template and also the specs of my sink, and they cut my countertop. If you're gonna cut your own countertop, you wanna use this template, and the first thing you wanna figure out is what reveal you wanna use. So there's 2 options. The first option here is for a flushed reveal, and that's this inside perforated edge here. If you wanna use that, you'll just tear it off. So a flushed reveal is when the edge of your countertop here is flush with the inside of your sink. The other option is for a 3/8 inch positive reveal, and that's this outside edge of the template. So if you're choosing that option, you won't cut anything off. And that's when you can see the 3/8 inch lip of the sink. So either option works for the included accessories. Once you figured out what reveal you'd like to use, next we need to consider our clearances before we set our template in place. So you want to consider your back wall here, what material you're using. So I'm using a tile backsplash. I want to make sure I have enough room for that. And then my faucet, which is going in this hole here, I want to make sure there's enough room for my faucet itself and any plumbing. And then any plumbing accessories that I'm using, making sure there's enough room for those. Then underneath the countertop, I want to make sure I have enough room for my sink when we place it in and that there's no plumbing or anything in the way. Once you figured out your clearances, you can set your template, go ahead and cut your countertop, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, I've gone ahead and flipped my countertop upside down so the bottom is facing me, and I've placed a drop cloth down to protect the surface of my countertop. Now you're likely gonna need to grab a hand to help you. This is likely gonna be very heavy. You just wanna make sure you do it safely. Okay, so I've got my sink upside down here, and I've lined it up, I've got it straight, and it's right where I want it. To do that, you can look through this drain hole here to line it up, or you can go underneath the countertop and make sure it's lined up. Once you've got it where you want it, we're gonna mark the holes for our mounting brackets. So I'm gonna grab my tape measure and a pencil, and you're gonna measure 1/2 inch off the edge of your sink. So we're gonna have 3 holes on the front, 3 holes on the back, and then 2 on each side. We wanna make them evenly spaced. Now you also wanna consider the size of your bracket. So this is what the bracket looks like. You wanna make sure this isn't gonna interfere with any hole you have for your plumbing fixture. So a good rule of thumb is making sure you're about a hand's width away from any plumbing fixture. All right, so let's go ahead, mark those holes. All right, so I'll do the first one here at 1/2 inch off the edge. Okay, so we're gonna mark the rest of those, but before we move on, a pro tip here is to go ahead and trace the outline of your sink. It's gonna make it a lot easier when we go to apply silicone in a future step. We're gonna know right where to place our sink. All right, so go ahead and mark those holes and trace your sink. Now it's time to drill the holes in our countertop for our mounting brackets. We've gone ahead and gotten our sink out of the way, and you're gonna wanna grab a 3/8 inch diameter drill bit that's appropriate for your countertop material. You're gonna wanna drill each hole 1/2 inch deep. Now, pro tip here to help you figure out how deep to drill these holes is to place a piece of tape 1/2 inch high on your drill bit here. Then when the tape hits the surface of your countertop, you know that you've drilled deep enough. Okay, now when you go to drill each of these holes, make sure to keep your drill straight up and down. Once you've drilled all the holes in your countertop, it's time to install our anchors. Before you do that, you want to take a vacuum and vacuum out each of our holes to make sure there's no dust inside. Okay, so grab an anchor, it looks just like this, and you're going to want to start to seat it in your hole. Just like that, it'll be snug. Now you'll take a hammer and tap it into place, and you'll know that it's seated when this flange here touches the surface of your countertop. You want to make sure when you're hammering not to damage your countertop, so be careful. Okay, that looks good. Go ahead and repeat the same steps for the rest of your anchors, then we'll go to the next step. Now we're going to install our strainer. I just think it's much easier to install the strainer now than after the sink is in. So your strainer comes assembled in the box, so the first thing you want to do is disassemble it. Then you'll grab your metal strainer here and your foam gasket, and you'll slip it over, and then place this in the hole in your sink. And then you'll grab your main body and your rubber gasket. Just place the gasket right in the main body, just like that. And then grab your screw. Take note that this ridge here means that this is the top of the screw. All right, so we'll place our main body on the bottom of the sink, and then take our screw and thread it through the strainer into the main body and hand tighten it. Okay, I'm gonna grab my flathead screwdriver, and before you tighten this all the way down, you wanna make sure that your strainer is centered. So keep that in mind as you tighten. Okay, once that's snug, you'll be left with your strainer cover, which you don't need to put in until after the sink is installed, and then your drain nut and your drain gasket, which you won't use until you go to hook up your plumbing. All right, go ahead and get that strainer installed. Now it's time to apply our silicone. You want to make sure that your sink surface and your countertop surface are clean and dry before you do this. We're going to apply a bead of silicone all along this edge on all sides of our sink. And if you chose a 3/8 inch positive reveal, you just want to keep that in mind when you're applying your silicone. It's okay if you get a little bit where the reveal is going to be. We can always wipe up any excess. All right, let's get started. Okay, now that we have our silicone applied, we're going to take our sink and place it onto our countertop, making sure it's in the correct orientation and that we line it up with that line that we traced earlier. Okay, we have our sink set in place, and I've made sure it's in the correct orientation. As you can see, we have all of our brackets installed, and I'll show you how to do the last one. So this is what your mounting bracket looks like. You want to make sure that this curved end is facing down, and you'll place it over the anchor here and slide it back till it's touching this ridge on the sink. And then grab the included screw, and you're going to hand tighten it down. Then take your Phillips head screwdriver and tighten it the rest of the way. You want to make sure you don't over tighten it, just make it snug. Now you're going to wipe up any excess silicone and let that cure according to the manufacturer's instructions. Then get the help you need to flip the countertop back over and set it in place. All right, that wraps it up. I think it looks really good. If you're installing a faucet, I'm sure we've got a video for that too. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Delta's customer service. They're happy to help.